Daniel Ricciardo ended McLaren's 9-year victory out ahead of teammate Lando Norris in an extraordinary Italian GP that featured the season's second big controversial collision between title rivals Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen, which this time saw both drivers crash out. Hamilton and Verstappen's races ended in the gravel after the first chicane after a bizarre and frightening crash of lap 26 of the Italian Grand Prix. The Red Bull attempted to overtake the Mercedes. Both had just lost ground at slow pit stops and suddenly found themselves battling for position into Monza's tight right-left opening corner. The oncoming Verstappen attempted to go around the outside of Hamilton in the braking zone, which put him in the inside for the left-hander on the exit, but the two cars met in the middle after the Dutchman went over the orange sausage curb. Making contact with that, the Red Bull was lifted with all four wheels off the ground, with its rear wing swiping the rear of the Mercedes, making contact with a safety roll hoop and halo head protection device. Following a post-race investigation, stewards ruled that Verstappen was predominantly to blame for the collision and handed the F1 driver and title leader a free-place grid penalty for the next race in Russia on September the 26th. Both drivers again pointed the finger of blame at each other in post-race interviews. Verstappen had lost the lead from pole to the fast-starting Ricciardo, who drove sensationally all afternoon and was still ahead when the World Championship contenders dropped out. Norris overtook Ferrari's Charles Leclerc in the subsequent safety car to secure McLaren's 1-2 finish after a brilliant weekend. It's McLaren's first win since Brazil 2012, 170 races ago, and Ricciardo's first since Monaco 2018 for Red Bull. To anyone who thought I left, I never left. I just moved aside for a while, said the now 8-time race winner Ricciardo after a difficult start to his McLaren career. Red Bull's Sergio Perez finished third on the road, but dropped to fifth after a 5-second time penalty was imposed on him for leaving the track and gaining an unfair advantage in a battle with Leclerc. Valtteri Bottas, Sunday sprint winner, took over third position after a final recovery drive from 19th following engine penalties, but the time he spent behind Perez cost the finish shot at McLaren. Leclerc got back ahead of Perez in the final classification, courtesy of the Mexican's penalty with Ferrari teammate Carlos Sainz. Two sprint weekends, two acrimonious clashes. While the jury may remain out on a sports tryout format for select events in this season, coincidentally or not, they have certainly ended up reducing the biggest two moments of this gripping season so far. Just 8 weeks after Silverstone, when the rivals collided at high speed on the opening lap at Copse, while Verstappen crashing into the barriers, they tangled at relatively low speed in pursuit of victory at a fabled Monza circuit that has a habit for high drama. The incident came on lap 27 as Hamilton exited from the pit lane after his start. The Mercedes service had lasted slightly longer than 4 seconds with a sluggish stop and dropped the world champion back behind Norris, who he had finally overtaken just before the start. Things have been even worse with Verstappen. Running a close second to Ricciardo, a rare pit stop shocker for the Red Bull, meant the Dutchman had spent 11 seconds in the box before joining the track, costing him places. As Hamilton rejoined the back behind the second McLaren, Verstappen was powering down the long pit straight and went left as Hamilton defended on the right into the Rettifolo chicane. No joy there for the Dutchman, but the line put him on a tighter inside for the next corner, and he went for a second attempt at the move. Hamilton said, "I'm sure I lay a car's width on the outside. I went to the turn 1 and I was ahead. I was going into turn 2, then all of a sudden he was on top of me." Exactly the same scenario happened on turn 4 on the first lap when I went around the outside and I was in exactly the same position, but I gave way, and that's racing. He just didn't want to give way today. He knew when he was getting into turn 2 what was going to happen. He knew where he was going to go over the curve, but I still did it. We'll speak to the stewards and we'll see. Verstappen, I said, I don't expect him to just keep on squeezing, because he didn't need to. Even if he had left me just a car's width, we would have raced out of turn 2 anyway, and I think he probably still would have been in front. He just kept on pushing me wider and wider, and at one point there was nowhere to go. He just pushed me onto the stoppage curb. That's why at the end of the day we touched, because the rear tyre is bumped up to his tyre. Toto Wolff said, "I think in football you'd say it was a tactical foul." Verstappen probably knew that if Lewis stays ahead that is the race win possibly. Horner said, "Max had the momentum, he had enough space around the outside. I think Lewis gave enough through into the run into turn 1, and I think your opinion would be that Lewis perhaps closed him too much into turn 2. While the collision and the fallout will inevitably dominate sporting headlines for weeks, McLaren's return to the top of the podium was a top story in its own right, plus a heartwarming one for the perspective of driver and team. Significantly, Ricciardo's victory was neither inherited nor fortunate. It was therefore a fitting way to banish what had been a tricky start to his career at the team he joined in January, with the season at the time hit her to largely belonging to the brilliant Norris. It is actually probably the first time I've been overwhelmed by winning, said Ricciardo. I think as well, because it's been over 3 years, not that this affects me, but I just know that no one would have expected it to happen this year, especially after the first half of the year. To be the guy that gets the first win for this team in 9 years, it's pretty special, I'll take that. Before I go, here's the final classification. Ricciardo and Norris, what can you say about them? After taking a hit to Ferrari last weekend, they more than responded, and just absolutely brilliant to see McLaren on the top step again. Bottas instead, I think he'll be really happy with that. Podium from where he was, he's had a great weekend. Leclerc and Sainz 4th and 6th, while they have lost ground to McLaren, if you consider it on their own, I think they'll be relatively happy to get some points, considering it's been a tough weekend. Perez in 5th though, it's been another questionable weekend for him. Finishing behind Bottas really shouldn't have happened considering where he was starting. Stroll in 7th is a great result for him, picking up really solid points. I think Alonso will be happy as well, Russell as well, going unnoticed and getting points again, a great job. Ocon in 10th, Latifi in 11th, solid enough for them. I think Latifi will be quite happy with that, but disappointed to miss out. And then you got Vettel in 12th, just didn't have a great race. You could say the same about Giovinazzi as well behind, obviously had that spin on the first lap. And then Kubica, just couldn't do much about it, and Schumacher behind. And then, you've got all of the retirees. Mazepin, obviously him and Schumacher had another incident, so I just kind of think something has to be done about them really, because it's clear that they're just not getting on at the moment, and something really needs to change for Haas. And then you've got Verstappen and Hamilton, obviously the main talking point. I think I'll go into it later in the week, but 3 place for penalty for Verstappen, I'm just not sure about it. And then you've got Gasly and Tsunoda, just disastrous for AlphaTauri, especially after how well Gasly did on Friday. They'll just want to move on and forget about this weekend with Aston Martin and Alpine scoring. Anyway guys, that's it for the video. Thanks very much for watching. Remember to like, share, subscribe. Let me know your thoughts, comments down below, and follow me on Twitter, links description below for daily F1 news, and subscribe to my channel, that'd be greatly appreciated. Thanks very much for watching. Peace.